Feeling What's Me co-host, Nini's,
Hello.
Pastor Erica, and then Desiree. She's behind the scenes, but she'll come back to us. We're just really excited to come back and reunite with you guys. I know it's been a long time waiting, just to go through the second part of the book of Healing What's Hidden. We're just really excited to dive in and just kind of give you guys, again, kind of what we did with the first part, which is kind of give an insight as to what we went through in our journey through this experience. And I think we're just all really excited to be here.
Yes.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long time waiting.
It's been a month.
You know what though? It's been a month.
It's been a month.
It's a lot of
Relax.
It's a lot of scheduling, getting it back together, trying to figure out time. But I'm glad that we're all able to just sit around and make it and, be our lovely ladies in pink. So
Yes.
let's dive in. Okay, so chapter 2, or excuse me, part 2, is gonna cover your wounding. This
part hit for all of us.
Yeah, I was like, this part, we got
Too hard. This is what made the triplets.
Yeah, this is literally what made the triplets. There was a lot of tears. I think this part, honestly, part 2 was probably like the part that got us all really to like crack open our shell. Like I
100%.
think part 1 was like, okay, like we're getting in there, and then part 2 was like, bam!
All crying, vocals, everything.
Yeah.
And like every time we're like, the way we've been through it.
Yeah. Like it softened us to open up to one another, just to like be vulnerable.
Just because
Yeah.
we're a family, so it's a little harder to be like, wait, did I put my business out there?
Yeah.
I'm gonna see you on Sunday. Like I don't know what's gonna hit the same.
Exactly.
Like,
Every time you look at me, are you gonna think about what I told you? Because I'm scared.
Okay. So yeah, just part 2 in the sense of like your wounding. We kind of did like a rehash, and my sister and I kind of just went through like a couple of like the chapters again, just to kind of get like a refresher as to what we experienced during that healing part of the journey. And it discussed a lot about like I think like the first section has to do with like a lot of loss. So I feel like as you get older, the more loss you experience, and every loss is like a traumatic event. But I thought it was a beautiful like opening, because it wasn't just about loss as a, like somebody like who passes away and things like that. It's loss in like a variety of forms. It could be like a loss of a job, a loss of a relationship, and things like that. And I feel like we've all experienced that here. Like we've all experienced like for sure a loss of a lot of things. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think I miss him. Just kidding.
But I do. I'm just kidding.
I know he misses me.
So, for sure, I think that like, I think as people we forget that we're able to like grieve that as well. I think that a lot of times when we think of the grieving process for something being lost, it is usually like a person when somebody passes away. Then we're all used to kind of like grieving that sense of loss. We're like, okay, like we have to go through the steps, go through the process. Like, what's it called? We all lost like our grandmother. We lost a couple of family members. Like we lost another grandmother of ours. So like when we grieve that loss, like you're very emotional. I think in that sense, like okay, like it's gonna be an emotional roller coaster. You already kind of like suit yourself up, and that to a lot of people is like the normality of things. But I think like giving ourselves more grace to understand that like even the little losses, even if it's not a death, like you still have to grieve that too. You still have to give yourself the grace to like go through that process.
And it's just like you said, it's a process. And it's something that like can't be rushed, even if other people want to rush you through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the book helped us to realize like everybody goes through loss, and their process on handling like the grief or like just the whole experience is different for everyone. So sometimes you want to like be there for somebody when they go through a loss, but it's also kind of awkward because you're like, I don't know what to say, or like, I don't want to tell them, like the book helped us to understand like, yeah, we still want to be there for people when they're going through a loss, but it might be difficult, but don't give up on them. Like, don't give up just because they're going through something and you might not know what to say. And it just kind of showed, like, reflected on how, like, we all feel like if someone's going through a loss, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to tell them, like, what I'm going through because it's really good, and I don't want them to think, like, oh, dang, girl, that sucks. But anyway, so.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I got a new car, can you believe that? Low interest rate. Okay.
God is
Girl,
good.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just, the book just showed us, like, different ways on how to, not only ourselves to, like, be okay with going through loss, like, it's okay to lose something and grieve it and just go through your own process, but it's also okay if, like, when people are grieving a loss, for them to kind of, like, take their time, you know. It kind of helps us to see, like, everybody grieves differently, so we still have to give them space, but also, like, still be there for them to encourage in whatever way we can. So I like that part of the first beginning.
Yes. So something that I highlighted here for myself was, let's see here, kind of like what the girls were sharing when you lose somebody, but it also can be tragic. It's not when you lose just a person. It can be like, let's say maybe a loss of job, right? Maybe a loss of self, right? And I know we live in this this crazy world, and we can sometimes lose ourselves if we're not, you know, focused on God. But even through the process, God reminds us, you know, like it's not how you fall, it's how you get back up. But
Yeah, amen.
yes.
I really also like that they highlighted, like, I like this book for a lot of many reasons, but I also like that it gives us so many, like, graphs and, like, animations, just because I feel like some people are visual people. I'm a visual learner myself, so, like, to see a visual as to, like, okay, like, this is, like, the way that we're supposed to process something, it's kind of beautiful. And in the book, they give us kind of like a cycle that I really appreciated. So it's like when you, like, lose something, and then it goes kind of like a U diagram. I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah, if you want to share, like, what you see there, so those that are watching can kind of
And
get
if you
the
can't see
idea.
it, zoom in.
It's like it's right here, no. But so it starts off at the top, which is like loss and the hurt feeling, and then you go into like shock, numbness, denial, emotional outburst, anger, fear, searchings, disorganization, panic, guilt, loneliness, and then it goes back up like the graph, which goes up to like isolation, depression, re-entry troubles, new relationships, new strengths, new patterns, hope, affirmation, helping others, and then loss adjustment. So, like, that's where you were, like, that's how you would adjust in order to kind of get back into, like, the normal setting of things within your own, like, life. And the reason why I like this diagram is because on the following page, it's basically like scribbles all over the page, because it, like, all over the diagram, because they're like, in reality, like, yeah, that seems nice, like, that's the most, like, logical and the most, like, well-rounded way to want to go through grief, but then they're like lost, but then they go through it and it's like, yeah, but it doesn't always happen like that. And that was, for me personally, that was like a very, like, graceful thing to see, just because I am somebody who, like, retracts. And I was just talking about this with my sister and my friend about how, like, when I go through something, or like I go through like a loss and things like that, then I'm like, okay, and I'll try to go through like basically the little Venn diagram, and then I feel like I got to a point where I'm like, okay, like, adjustment, and then I go all the way backtrack. I said, wait a minute, I thought I was
Something triggers you, and you're
yeah,
like, hold on.
wait. So it's like nice to see that, like, I'm not the only one, and that the cycle looks more like the scribbled aspect of it than it does like kind of going through like the steps of it. Like, it doesn't look so uniform is what I mean. Like, it's very much so zigzag.
I think for me, what stood out was more of what they stated in the book, which was, you may never complete your healing, but you'll be able to think about those memories as happy past memories instead of painful present absences. And I thought that stood out to me just because, like, obviously when you're young, well, yeah, young.
Like, I know I'm young, but like,
well, even like when you're a little bit, they're not old, but when you're a little bit older, you still go through like certain like experiences like heartbreak, right?
Yeah.
And it's always like, oh, like I don't want to let this person go. Oh, this is the one for me, so and so, right? But what stood out to me was when they stated really that in order to, I guess not really complete, but yeah, like you can't really complete your healing unless you move past it. And as hard as it is, and as painful as it is, it's definitely worth it to move past your trauma or past the heartbreak, because then you're just gonna go back into the pit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that being like the cycle, just because that is sometimes how it goes. Like you were saying earlier, like if you go through a heartbreak, and I'm sure we've all gone through like a heartbreak one way or the other.
Like multiple times. We had to.
Multiple heartbreaks. It's okay. Character development is what I like to call. But you go through a bunch of different heartbreaks, and like obviously I think just from our aspect, that's something that it's very relatable for us. When you go through that type of loss of like being with a person, or some people it is a job, some people kind of like Pastor Eric was saying, it is a loss of a person, or not loss of a person, a loss within self.
Yeah.
I've experienced that, and I think that the book really like emphasizes that it is kind of like it is an ongoing journey. It's not something that like, okay, you get over it, move on, like that's it, you tuck it away, like you moved on from it. It's something that like you have to constantly remind yourself that like it is something you're gonna constantly go through. And like the more I feel like you bring awareness to it, and the more you understand your feelings, and you kind of develop that emotional intelligence in the sense of like for us, and for obviously a lot of people in our church, and a lot of people that I've noticed that have gotten the book, it's building your faith and building a relationship with God. You start having more security and more emotional intelligence in that manner, because you start to have an understanding of like, okay, what techniques, what skill bases can I provide myself in order to like get through the grieving process, and then if it comes back again, what steps can I take in order to go through it again? For a lot of us, it is prayer, it is worship, it is having that faith with God, it is that reassurance of like who God says you are. And I think just kind of having that, that's what builds that like repetition of like, okay, I can get through this, even if it comes again.
Yeah, and I like this part because I know when we first started, and that was the part 1, it was basically your first steps. And your first step, even at not even knowing, but there comes a point in time in your life where you need to acknowledge what the circumstance and the emotions that you're going through. And I know sometimes it can be hard for many, so we kind of just tend to just kind of brush it under the carpet. But this part here, part 2, I like this part because this is where the girls had mentioned, you know, it took a minute for us to like sincerely, like really truly open up. Yes, there was a lot of tears, a lot of conversation, also a lot of understanding, because there was a lot of similarities regardless of the age group. So when we went through part 2, some of the things that I kind of looked over is it was lost living boldly when you're uncertain. And then we went through guilt, shame, and regret.
The triplets.
Yes, the triplets, right?
My favorite little, you know,
That's where it all started.
And then also knowing how to move forward. In this journey with the book, this is what we learned. Also to rejection, neglect, and abandonment.
Yeah.
Knowing you're worthy when you feel worthless. And I know that's the I guess you can say this is in the time that we're living. And it's just not now. I mean, I just think it's progressed even more. And when you feel like you're meaningless, what hope can you give to the other person, right? Or if you're going in a sense of maybe rejecting, somebody has rejected you in the past, where you have so much love for this person, and the moment they turn their back on you, you feel rejected. And even those things, as time goes by, you think, well, like, no, I'm over it, and, you know, I'm good, and it doesn't faze me no more. I'm kind of grown. I've already over or bypassed that. You come to realize that some of the behavior tendencies is because of rejection. And I love this book because it took us through a journey to be able to explore our hearts, to be sincere with each other, And for me, it was a little hard because I'm the oldest one in the group.
You're not that old.
But like a year.
She's not that
And
old.
some change.
But even then, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, the enemy doesn't have no measure or what would be the next word to say? Like, he chooses or
I like how the book says he doesn't discriminate.
exactly, he doesn't
Yeah.
discriminate.
No, he does not.
He does not. But guess what? Neither does God, right?
Amen.
Amen.
Yes,
Hallelujah.
yes. And then the other thing that I like was on the part 2, and if you girls want to share on this, it says hurt and abuse.
Oh my god.
Finding peace when your life is full of fear.
Don't get me started.
Full of fear. This one was a tough for me because right before I gave myself to Christ, there was an evangelist. Mind you, I had no idea what the setting or the leadership or what takes place in a Christian community. Mind you, never attended church other than a Catholic church, right? But to say this is because I was told that I lived in fear. The moment that I heard that from this evangelist to tell me that I live in fear, that's all I heard, but there was no solution to that. There was no glimpse of hope. In the sense where, like, I believe I needed a little more than just to tell me, you live in fear. And it took so many years to the moment that I gave myself to Christ. I'm like, okay, I still have that in the back of my mind. I live in fear. We can live in fear because of many things, right?
Yeah.
And it took this journey sincerely for me to realize, like, wow, like God really like opened up my eyes and revealed so much. But it's been awesome to say, you know, the least. But it's been a tough journey. I'll say that. I don't know
Yeah.
for you girls how you.
Oh no, yeah.
how's it been?
Even like I said, it's an ongoing journey. So even nowadays, like I like to think like we all did a sufficient amount of like healing through the process, and we've grown a lot as individuals and as a group, and just like even aside from like the healing journey, we've grown a lot as a church and as just a congregation. I think it's an amazing, beautiful thing to like witness and see.
Amen.
But I do think that the reason why this book's also super extremely amazing is because you can always go back to it, and there's always more healing you can do. And that's something that I feel like we kind of like discovered just when we were just going back through it just to get like a refresher.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We're like, hold on. And then
Well, preach to me then.
yeah, and it's just funny because like you get back into it again. You're like, oh, like that's right, like that did like feel some type of way, and then like I said, like life is going on. Like the enemy doesn't sleep for nobody. So he's gonna come and continue to attack. So with that being said, like of course, like we gotta always just be on guard and just ready to like continue to fight the good fight, because it is a never-ending battle. And I think that that's kind of what this book also reiterates, is that like this journey is a never-ending journey that we gotta continue to like go through, and like the better we arm ourselves, the better we like acknowledge our weaknesses, the better we can like make them our strengths and just like continue to prosper in life, honestly.
Yeah, and it just helps open your eyes to things that like you normally wouldn't pay attention to, as far as like guilt, shame, and regret, and how it just kind of, you know, just shows you like how you were living or how you're currently living. And then it's like such a good step. It gives you such a good like process to step forward in whatever aspect that you fall into. So like for me, when I picked regret, because I'm like, oh, I knew better and I shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, I sit on regret because I just know, you know, some people are just like that, where they're like, I shouldn't do this, but because I already know it's gonna happen. But maybe the outcome will be different this time. And then when it's not, I'm like, oh my gosh. So like I love that it helped each and every one of us in whatever phase we were in to like not only acknowledge that, okay, that's me and it's okay, but also it gave us the opportunity to be like, it's not just me though, like it's everyone. Everyone has these feelings. everybody's going through this. If not now, they will. And then it gives us the opportunity to kind of give us just a guide to be like, okay, so I'm going through this, but how can I get through this? How can God help get me through this and push me forward?
Yes, amen. And I can honestly say, like, just listening to the girls speak right now, it reminds me when they first came on day one, when we started this Healing What's Hidden. They were, honestly, I mean, I love them, and they understand, you know, but they were really broken. Broken because there was so much that you can see.
That's the world.
But it's just amazing to see how God moves in their lives and how God was able to change so many things that it's so easily for them to speak of it now. And when we started this journey, there was a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
There was a lot of tears. There's a lot of sharing.
A lot of tears.
Yeah.
Where's the tissue box?
Yeah.
We ran out of tissue boxes.
So
Every session.
So definitely I can say healing. I mean, healing. It's done a lot for myself as well, you know. A lot of stuff within my journey at a younger adult, I guess. But as I grew, I learned a lot of things that I've done in the past made me realize this is why the person that I was and how I needed to let go in order for God to be able to move in my life. And sometimes we tend to block ourselves of things that we don't even know, we can't even make sense out of it. But through this journey here, just our wounding, we know the wounding, we understand the wounding.
Yeah.
And now I can see how the girls have been able to move forward, and it's easier for them to talk about it. Yeah, and definitely, I mean, this is a good experience, and I know that I want each of us to grow, but not more so just us, is that you can be part of it.
Yes.
You know, if it's done a lot for each and one of us, it can do the same thing for you. And I'm not trying to like promote this book. No, don't get me wrong. To me, what captured me was the healing what's hidden.
Yes.
So that drew my attention to grab a hold of this book and to understand it. And I know it was the same for the girls, because when we first started the journey, it was kind of like, okay, I see, like, I can relate with this, like, who's telling him my story, you know?
Yeah, I'm like, who called you Evan?
Yes.
We love Evan.
Yes.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
my gosh,
Yes.
we love Evan.
So Evan and his wife are the authors of this book, and I know that you'll receive from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
As you can see, maybe not in the beginning stages with these lovely ladies, but like I said, yes, we were all broken, and you know what, we're going through the process of healing, and I thank the Lord for it, because now we can see things with more clarity. Now we understand why we are the way we were, you know, and how we can submit and correct, because we ask God for forgiveness, and we just kind of move on from that. Is there anything, or how about this? I want one of you girls to really open up right now
Oh my goodness,
to
you're
the
just putting
people.
us on the
This
spot.
audience.
I was like, no.
Share the story.
Wait, with Pastor Erica, she's like, you know what would be beautiful?
Pass me the tissue.
If one of you guys, she's like, you know what would be beautiful? If one of you guys were vulnerable. Cry right now.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
But you know
Let
what's
it out.
crazy is that, like, I think itself is just, it's so beautiful just to see, like, yes, we're different ages, but the healing just, it flows through all of us, even though
Yes.
we're all different ages and we
Yes.
all gone through different stages at different times. We all gone through similarities of heartbreak or through trauma. And what I like about the wounding part is really that it touches base on your trauma.
Yeah.
Is that it touches
It's like what the experience
yes,
was
it
for.
touches more like, okay, like, let's identify your trauma. Let's get deep and dirty into, like, what is your trauma? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, hold on.
The questions were like,
The questions were
write down
crazy.
your life and what happened to you. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I don't know if I can-
I was like, wait a minute. Because, like, there was, during the hurt and the abuse, right? I think for me, that was a little more where I got emotional, was hurt and abuse. Because obviously, like, there's some abuses where they get a little more, I guess, highlighted than others, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
which we can say.
Yes.
So obviously we know, like, there's physical, there's sexual, there's psychological, and there's spiritual abuse, right?
Right.
And each one, obviously, horrendous trauma, but each trauma the outcome is so beautiful because we can also, well, majority of the people who are going through the healing process because of this book, or because, you know, they're trusting God that this book is going to help them as well, that they really put trust into not only, like, I can say not only into us to introduce this book to them, but also to know, like, you know what, if this helped them in these areas, then it will help me as well. And I think that's what's so beautiful about this part, just to acknowledge what abuse or what hurt or what trauma caused me to be the person I am today, right? And for me, going through the hurt and the abuse stage was kind of more of like, okay, like, I'm 19, right? So I'm still like, I'm a baby, but I'm not a baby. But according to Natalie, she's like, you're an adult, but you're not an adult. But when you hit 21, you're an adult. So right now you're still a baby of an adult. I'm like, okay, gotcha, right? So I'm 19, right? And it's kind of like one of those when you're in like the teen eras, right? You all go through relationships, you go through talking stages, situationships, right? Nowadays.
Yes.
And for me, what had hit me during this area that hit me super hard, that I was crying like mocosa and everything, like type of crying at night, was pretty much acknowledging that, like, I have been abused in a psychological area, like in a sense where the person I was talking to would mentally abuse me, would tell me this, would tell me that, would start putting me in a bubble and put me like in the dark, and I couldn't escape it, to the point where I was stuck in my own head, and I would start believing those lies, knowing that, hey, they're not true because God says that they're not true, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was harder to acknowledge it, because I was like, oh, I wasn't abused, you know, but no, like, even being mentally abused is hard. It's so hard.
Yes.
And I think, not saying that, oh, it's greater, but it is really hard to know that a person that, you know, says that, oh, I like you, I care for you, and I show that I care for you, all of a sudden just says, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, well, so-and-so can do better, and then I get this from that. Like, you know, going through all those scenarios, when you get those at such a young age, mind you, I was like 16 at the time. So mind you, like, going through, like, and being told that at such a young age from somebody who supposedly cares about me is kind of like, okay, now, hold on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was hard for me to acknowledge it, just because I put it back in the rug, like I just tossed it under the rug. We came across this book, and I was like, okay, I don't think I'm broken. Mind you, I was a very prideful person, I would say. I was like, I'm not broken.
Where are we all?
I'm not broken.
Here.
I'm like, I'm not broken. I'm just here for moral support. No, I started crying the second session at that point. Like, it was tremendous. But yeah, I think for me, that part definitely hit me more, just because that was something that was hard for me to let go of, which is understandable, because, like, you fall for, well, not in love, because it's not love, it's lust, right? You fall into something where, this is the person I care about and I put full trust in, but to know that they pretty much stabbed me in the back is kind of like, ooh, I don't want to acknowledge that. I'm gonna just push it to the side.
And it makes you not want to try anymore, or like
100%.
trust anybody. And then it makes you like hard to open up to a book, because you're like, how can I trust you to fix me when
Like, what do you know?
I'm sorry, Jenny and Evan, but I don't know you personally.
Yeah, I don't know you
It's for me to tell you my business.
all my cards out on the table for you to just
100%.
dissect.
And I think it's not just with relationships, it's also with friendships. Like,
Yeah.
so many people are stuck in toxic friendships that it's like, girl, you need to pack up your bags and you need to leave. Like, that is not the person for you.
But that's what's so good about this book, is that, like, I think a lot of people aren't aware that they're in toxic friendships, or they're very much so, like, putting things in the back burner. They're like, man, is that really toxic? Is that really
yes,
toxic?
because if you're questioning it, it is toxic, girl.
Yeah.
Like, come on now.
But, you know, and so, like, for us, like, I think going through, like, the healing journey, it, like, this book really does overemphasize, and it does dissect that concept of, like, what is trauma. And I think a lot of people, even when we first were kind of reading it, it was like a broader, like, picture where, like, okay, like, these specific things are trauma. Like, okay, like, if you've been, like sexually harassed or whatever the case is, and, like, then you went through trauma. Or, like, if your boyfriend cheated on you, then, okay, then you went
That's
through
trauma right there.
You know what I mean?
But it dive deep.
But then people are, like, now looking at the little things too, of, like, okay, like, yeah, maybe your boyfriend didn't cheat on you, but maybe he manipulated the situation and you, like, belittled yourself. Maybe, like, your job isn't, like, having you outside for 13 hours a day, like doing hard like labor for like 10 cents. Yeah, and not a day off, or like 10 cents by the hour, but like minimum wage for everybody else is $20. Like maybe it's not that like to the extent, but it's little things like maybe your job is taking advantage of you. Like maybe instead of like having the 2 days off, now for whatever reason without your permission they schedule you like 6 days. You're like, oh, it's fine this week. But then it's like every single week now you're working. Now you're from 6 days to 7 days, and now it's like, what day did you get off? And they're like, well, it's okay because the 7th day only really work like 4 hours, but then you end up saying 10. So it's like, you know, so it's like little things like that. Like I think those little burdens are what start to like weigh down a person.
Or even how it says like what you experienced growing up. It might not even be your own trauma, like you put in yourself.
Yeah,
it can be the things that your parents put you through, and they didn't even know because they're going through the day-to-day life. And you're, you know, that really hit for me in the book because I have a baby, and it made me emotional because I'm like, oh my gosh, do I do this to my daughter? Then it started to make me question myself as like the mother that I am. And then we were reading like the regret, shame, and guilt part. So I was like, is that me? But then we read like the put yourself on trial, like put them on trial. So that really helped me.
That activity was crazy.
Yeah, it's like it helped me go through the steps to just be like, that's a lie, that's a lie. Yeah. Like the enemy's a liar.
I do want to get to that. If we can go to chapter 6 though.
Yes.
Just that way we can. It's like the introduction to the thing that we keep calling the triplets. So we ended up being in a, what's it called? It was one of our women's like gathering going through the Healing Woods hidden journey, and we got to chapter 6, and that's when we discovered like the triplets of guilt, shame, and regret, because we all each resonated with a specific thing, and it just so happened to be that like we all resonated with one that was different. So like let us bring the triplets. So
now at church you hear it's the triplets, the triplets. That's us.
And we're very proud because we went through the growing pains to be like, it's fine because
so I have
we know now.
I can joke about it, it's fine.
God says he loves me.
And on page 109, I highlighted, but speaking of that, actually, I like that concept because it is true, like, even on 109, I highlighted, what's it 109? I'm so sorry. It was 111. I highlighted the concept of when the triplets are acting as they should, they help lead us toward what is true and what is right. And I like that concept because we, like, some of us do live with shame, some of us do live with guilt, some of us do live with regret. Like, that's something that we resonate, and we might, like us here, we might resonate with one more than the other. And I did though because kind of how we all, like, find humor in it because we've gone through, like, the trenches of, like, healing through that process.
The trenches.
The trenches.
A little bit.
You know? We also have come to, like, find comfort in that feeling and knowing that, like not every feeling that you feel, even if it has a negative connotation based on like society standards, is something to be seen as a negative thing. Like sometimes they're used for like your benefit.
Character development,
but also to diagnose like what is like healthy and unhealthy. Like sometimes shame does bring kind of morality to an extent, or like sometimes even regret makes you like aware of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't make that decision. You know what I mean?
And like moving forward, I know like
okay, let me not do that.
Better discernment.
And I don't want to feel this way. So it gives you for sure like more discernment on the decisions that you make as a person, especially like going through those. So I like the concept of knowing that like it's kind of going back to like how
it's like a balance between them.
And how we feel even in like church about how like God uses like the qualified isn't like, you know what I mean? Or the he qualifies the called. Yeah, he doesn't like call them the qualified. I like that concept because it's like you can use the negative aspects that we learned in the book for your own good and your own well-being. So it is a good balance, and I like that.
And it's kind of nice because God highlights that for you to see. Like God shows you like even though you went through all of this, that doesn't mean that you're not valuable to me. Like how it says in 145, your worth is beyond measure. And that is true. To God, your worth is beyond measure. It's beyond anything or that you can think of or that someone can try to place on you. you know. And it says we can only truly heal the wounds of rejection, neglect, and abandonment when we embrace God's view of our identity. And that's another reason why I really love this book, because not only did it help us see what we're going through or what we might go through and how to get through it, but it helped us to see how God views us and how much God just wants us to see us through his eyes. Like, this is what the world might say of you because of what you've been through or what you've done, but this is how I view you. And that's what I really loved about the book, that it kind of opened me up to be like, okay, so God, you really do love me, and you really do want the best for me, and you really do want me to see that I am worthy and I'm chosen by you, and that I don't have to keep going through this pattern of like numbing myself or like repeating cycles that I shouldn't repeat, because you tell me how worthy I am. And I love that it uses scripture from, you know, the Bible to reflect on, to be like, okay, he does say that. Like Evan and
Evan's like, is that just me, girl?
yeah, like Evan and Jen are like, girl, we're just being used. Like, let me give you a little context. And you know, when you get to see that, then you're like, okay, like, God, you really are doing like, you know, your work inside of me. And that's another reason why I really love the book as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. It has been an amazing journey. Every time we read a lesson, when we would gather here in the evenings, it felt like that page would just stand out as it was personally speaking either to all three of us or all four of us, if not to just one person.
Yeah.
And then we would go into a second part, and it kind of felt like, okay, now it's speaking to one of the triplets, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like God is here. He's actually moving in this book. But I know that you would benefit out of it. And it's not just, like we mentioned earlier, just to hype the book. No, I just think that if God can do this through Evan and Jenny in the book for other people, and I think it's a glimpse to kind of share with others. This is why we took the time and we agreed to, you know, especially God leading us in this direction, to go live. To go live, because you know what, we do live in a world of uncertainty, you know, and definitely a lot of fear with people, a lot of teens that have graduated even through this season, and they think like, okay, so what next?
You go to church. I'm just kidding.
And
You
they
ready
think-
to that?
God's like, what next? Knock, knock, knock.
Yes. And I know that if we can benefit out of this, I know that you can.
And that's so
Yeah.
funny too, because
Yeah.
literally earlier, I can literally say she's my best friend, right? My best friend, she just graduated from high school. She's a year younger,
You're
right?
watching this, see a shout
And
out.
yeah, free shout out. Her Instagram's, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh my girl.
Just kidding. But because obviously, you know, I just think it's so beautiful, because I've had obviously like friendships, and let me tell you, friendship breakups hit harder than actual like relationship breakups, because
Yeah,
I've been
gosh,
crying
they do.
so hard for no reason.
I'm like, forget about
It's
that bad.
like you knew me on a whole different
You
level.
know me.
Like, it was
Yeah.
just, it's more like mental. Like, you knew the ins and outs
Like,
of me without
And we
ever.
will finish each other's
Like,
sentences.
you know.
Like, that's what, like, come on
Yeah.
now, get it together, girl. But anyways, right? But going through multiple friendships, right? I've had a lot of trouble, and I would say just because it was always their word against mine, and I would always be pinned to the wall saying it was your fault, it was this. I was like, right, trauma, literally playing out, right? And then I met my best friend now, right? And what's crazy is I met her literally when she was a sophomore and I was a junior. And through the journey with her, she has seen me grow into a person that I am now, actually. Because 2 years ago, I would not be sitting here, let alone would I still like be committing to, you know, oh, I'm pastor's kid, you're supposed to go to church. No, you don't. Like, you can just not want to go to church, right? You're not obligated to go. And if I didn't let God pretty much take the wheel, I wouldn't be at church and I wouldn't be sitting here doing Healing What's Hidden, right? still knowing that my friend, that she's witnessed that, and she's witnessed me grow as a person, as an individual, and spiritually, she always tells me, like, you always have the right words to say. I was like, girl, 2 years ago, you know I would not be saying that. Like, right now, I'm telling you, dump him, but 2 years ago, I would tell you, go back to him. Like, it's just so beautiful to me because, right, like, God has everybody in your life for a season, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand that concept till later in time, but what's so beautiful is that even in season, out of season, she's always been there. I'm a sophomore in college now. She's gonna be a freshman in college, and even through that transition, she's always still been there. And what's so beautiful to me and has always like touched my heart, I guess just God using her in a way to let me know that, hey, you may not feel it, and you may feel like you're going rock bottom, but I got you, because she always comes up and she tells me, like, I see a difference. I see your glow. And to me, that's what hits me, because I feel like, obviously, like, I don't see myself from an outer perspective, right? So it's like, oh, I feel like I haven't changed. But hearing her talk to me and hearing her words to me just hits me like, dang, like, God really is using me for, obviously, a younger generation. She's only 1 year younger, right? But even when I worked at the Boys and Girls Club, like, the kids were just so drawn to me. And I was like, okay, God, what are you trying to show me? Like, okay, you know? And I think for me, like, going through a healing process has not only helped me to heal from my trauma from when I was little to when, you know, I started growing up, but it's allowed me to be a person where even my fifth graders or my best friend comes to me and asks me, like, Miss Desiree or Des, like, what do you do and this and that, you know what I mean? And I think for me that's what impacted me, just to know, like wow, like, God really helped me heal in a way that now others draw into me to seek the same wisdom that God gave me, you know?
Yeah, like He allowed you to be vulnerable for you to take on those people that need to share their vulnerability. Like I get what you're saying as far as like He put you through that like process so that when people come to you, you're not like, what do I
Girl,
do?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, if you come to
I don't have problems.
I'm like, before it would be like, well, I would do this, but that's just me. Now it's like, no, I'm gonna just tell you about Jesus.
That's my
Jesus
favorite,
says
but that's just
that
me.
I'm like, Jesus says that y'all need to be one, not two. Period.
Yeah.
Also, just talk to my boy. Like
don't be shy, you know. Like,
do you need a book? Because I have a book.
We have extras, you know. Just come there.
that's crazy because we do have extra.
Yeah, I really resonate with that because I too have like a friend that.
We love Diana. If Diana's watching this, you know,
shout out. But I do like her a lot, and like, well, I don't just like her, obviously, like
she
I have
irritated her. And
I was like, girl, come with me.
You're coming to church.
oh my gosh.
But I have a lot of love for her just because, just like with you, she has been a friend that's been like with me like in and out of seasons as well, and I understand what that means just because like we all go through things and we all experience life at a different pace and just with different experiences. Like, yeah, we've all gone through trauma, we've all resonated with like our emotions and our feelings, but we've all gone through different traumas. Like what my sister has gone through, I didn't go through exactly the same thing she went through, you know. And then like what Desiree's gone through, I haven't gone through the exact same thing, or even past Erica, but we are able to be like, okay, but I know how you're feeling because I've gone through something, I've gone through an event that caused me to feel that way. So I think it's beautiful just because it, like, even if you're out there and you start this kind of group with like a bunch of people, whatever the case, or even just one person, and the reason why I brought her up is because she was she's somebody that I want to continue reading with her, but at one point was reading with Diana on the book, and like her and I are two different people, so she'd gone through her own different trauma, but she was also able to resonate with certain things that happened in the book, and just the same emotions we had, she was like, shut the book. And then I would shut it, she's like, wait, open it again, because I think something in there, it hit, so wait. And she'd give me like,
to me?
yeah, she's like, give me like 10 seconds, but also open it again, because I need to read it. So we would, and I just think I think it's amazing too, because this book doesn't just tell you like, okay, this is what you experienced, this is your trauma, but it's also like, this is the boundaries you can set, this is like the forgiveness you can give yourself and the grace you can give other people while setting like your boundaries so that way you know like, so that way you take preventative measures so you don't have to like, as much as you can, you don't have to keep reliving so much more trauma.
Yeah.
Like trauma unfortunately is gonna come and go, like we've been saying, and it's an ongoing journey, but this book is also amazing at doing that, like okay, what can you do? Like, yeah, I highlighted, I ripped all this like information out of you, but what are we gonna do with this information that we have in our hands?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and about the boundaries too, something like that was stated in the book too was like when you've gone through trauma, right? Obviously forgive, yes, but it was
Don't
forgive,
forget.
yes, no, not that. I was like, please forget, because it's gonna be a cycle, baby. Like, come on now. But it was pretty much like forgive, yes, but forgive without boundaries, no. Because
Yes.
you can't be saying, I forgive you, but you can't go back to that person.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then you're repeating the cycle over and over again. And it was beautiful because they literally gave an example of a woman who got up on stage and like, thank you Evan and Jenny for this book.
My God.
Oh my
yes.
goodness, this part was so funny. She was like, thank you Evan and Jenny, because now like so like she faced her trauma and she's pretty much gonna try again with her man who was abusive in some way. I forgot how, right? But
Evan and
and
Jenny
then
were
Evan
like-
and Jenny were in the front row like, wait a minute. Did I write that? So he literally goes back into the book and he's like, I did write that. So he's like, so now he's feeling kind of like
Corrections report.
yeah, he's like, wait a minute, now let me be more specific, right? But I thought that was so funny because like we all been there and we all done that. Like, oh, thank you because you helped me, but it's like, wait, I didn't say all that.
It's like, no, like, yeah, thank me, because I helped you, no.
But not like that.
but
I don't want you to go back.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't want you to go back to, like, what you were doing. I meant, like, now you know,
So
now
move
move on.
on.
So I do like that concept. And it's also cool because, like you said, like, now you have a best friend, but you know what a genuine friend is now.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
before, if we never, like, went through the healing process, if we never uncovered what is trauma, if we never went through the process of setting boundaries, because when you set boundaries with somebody who is not a true friend, let me tell you, that friendship does not last.
All hell
It
breaks
doesn't,
loose.
yeah, I was like, that friendship does not last. Then you're like, okay, like,
Yeah, you're this, that, and this, and everything.
yeah, and
in the
I'm
book.
like, what's going on? So it's cool because, like, doing healthy habits also creates healthy relationships, also creates, like, longevity when it comes to, like, okay, like, this is the person I'm gonna, like, hang out with all the time. So you know where to invest your time in. Like, you know where to
100%.
invest your emotions in because you're like, I know you're a true friend because I've already done X, Y, and Z to test your, like, not test it in the sense of, like, okay, like, let me put you on trial, but more test in the sense of, like, I know my worth, I know what I bring to the table, and I need to make sure that if I'm investing time into this friendship, because I am healing and I am a person that's going through that journey, I need to make sure that I'm not doing anything to backtrack me, so I need to make sure we're
Period.
friends, you know?
Period.
And, like,
Pretty much like saying like the people you surround yourself with is the same person like you would begin to show. You know what I mean?
oh my gosh, that's saying, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are.
100%.
I really didn't like that saying growing up.
I don't think any of us
Right.
did, but now it makes 100% more sense.
Yeah, like now I'm like, no, yeah, for real, because the way that like, even then, like when we're working together, people are like, I can tell you guys are like best friends because you guys don't know how to act. And I'm like, no, wait, and they're like, no, not like that, but like, we're very much so like two peas in a pod, and there's very much so like a lot of healthiness in the relationship, which I really do appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And even other relationships that I have, like there's a lot more, I feel like me and my sister can agree, there's a lot more of like a healthy relationship between us two, between like our parents, between just like a lot of people that we continue to have relationships with. There's a lot more like healthiness and there's a lot more communication, just like more positive than negatives. Again, every relationship is gonna have its downfall, but you know.
Yeah, and it helps you stop, like how you said, stop you from like entering relationships that are not gonna take you anywhere. They're gonna just like pull you away from God. Like when you start to like talk to someone new or like be like, okay, maybe I can like see myself like, you know, dating this person or yeah, exactly.
I can save him. No, you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes you think like, okay, like certain things that they do, you're like, it gives you like how we said earlier, better discernment to be like, I've already seen this before and I'm
I
not
know how
gonna do
it's gonna
this.
end.
And if you can't be okay with that, then You were only here for a season.
I remember saying something on one of the studies when we got together. I remember saying, like, oh my god, it sounds so bad, like, on camera. But during the time, it was funny, right? I was like, when you're talking to somebody, like, you really gotta ask them deep questions. Like, look, do you want me, or are you trying to just get in my pants? Cause
we were like, it was real.
What's your relationship with Jesus like?
Yeah. Well, I go to church. Okay, but on Easter and Christmas, or like you go to church regularly.
Like Sundays, you try to make it to Wednesdays too, because
Right, and then you go to Bible studies, and then you go like you're part of the worship team or like some type of media team. Like,
And it's like 2 years ago I was church.
like that's not gonna cut it.
And I'll say this, me being as her mom, it was a little hard to hear that in the beginning.
She's all, ooh.
And there was a lot of resistance for her to open up and talk and how God just,
Now I'm really open with my mama.
Yeah, and you know what? It even drew a closer relationship amongst,
Yeah.
mom and
Because
daughter. And I
I'm
love
really
it.
open with my mother now.
Good, amen.
She's like, Mom, check this. Does this look like I have to go to the doctors? No, alright.
Well, let me look at it a little bit closer.
But
Oh,
it
yeah.
definitely has been a good season. God has shifted in the lives of these young ladies, inclusive myself. And I know there's still more to come. I'm still even thinking once we're done with this podcast, even up to the third podcast, like what is next? I'm asking the Lord God, and I said, Lord, what is the next shift? What is the next season? Where do you want us? And it's amazing when
Yes.
God moves, He moves. And
Amen.
I mentioned to the girls, and I said, you know what? What you learn from this journey by healing what is hidden, it is up to you now to go out there and take it for somebody else.
Yes.
And then I see how God is moving, and we're still believing that He's going to do this with these lovely young ladies. They will have to share a little more on podcast number 3, right?
Ooh,
Yes.
Stay tuned.
And so
'cause
definitely I would say stay tuned.
Podcast is the best one though. If you really think about
We
it, and the
gotta
only reason
start
why it's because
Not because it's ending.
But because you're healing.
But yeah, because you're in your healing process, so you're like, okay, the introduction was like, all right, Mrs. You don't think you went through trauma? You went through something, and it's just like
you don't
one is
think
like,
you need help.
yeah, and then you're like, I know, and then you go like once you move past that, like, okay, maybe I do need help. It's like you really need help.
Yeah.
Opens it up, and so you have to like really take your time, like digest everything little by little.
Eating a burger.
Yeah, and like don't give up on the book, don't give up on yourself and your own healing journey or your process, and also don't try to speed through it. Like you can't be like, okay, let me read like chapter 1 and chapter 2 and like or part 1, part 2 within like
Let me skip a
3
couple
days.
pages. I don't like.
Yeah, because I don't like this part. And it's like every
read
page
this
is
story.
vital. Yeah, because it's like every page is vital for us, like for its own purpose, for its own reasoning. I'm sure we're all glad that we did not skip a page.
Yeah.
We like closed a book for a second because I was like,
But we
this is too
opened
much.
it back
But we open it back up and we get into it. So for sure, we're excited to come back with you guys and just go through part 3 of like your
Definitely
healing.
soon than later this time.
Yes.
Hopefully not a month. That would suck.
We
But-
promise.
I'm not gonna make promises.
I'm like, oh, yeah.
They're like editing me into the video. No, but I think it'll be some good stuff in here. And if you haven't gotten the book yet and you're like contemplating getting the book and for whatever reason you don't know where to like locate or find it, just try to like reach out as much as you can through like leaving a comment or whatever the case is on this YouTube, so that way we can try to like reach out and get like more personal information, because I think we're all willing to just like be able to like reach out back to you guys and
Yes.
try to get you a book if
Yeah,
possible. You
we're
know?
all in the sense like we're ready when you guys are ready. Like we're here when you guys are ready, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like just because you see us on live doesn't mean like they're not gonna respond. Like no, we'll respond.
We're real people.
We're real
Yes.
human
This
beings.
is
Like we
not-
will
We get
respond.
nothing to do.
If you DM any one of us just trauma dumping, like we will respond and we will of course put God in the midst.
Yes.
And
The word.
The
You're
word.
getting the word.
Yeah.
you're not getting no like, well I think no, this is what God says and this is where He says it.
Just because my thoughts might not be right. But God's
We go
are
back
always.
up.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, and we're just excited. We're super excited, and we just appreciate you guys for tuning in with us again.
Yes.
During this like long-awaited time, we're excited to see what God has for us, to come back to part 3 and just to like
To
uncover
heal.
more. Yeah, the healing process.
And just to see like what like you guys decide to do, like if you decide to take on the healing journey, like either by yourself or you know like with us, that's something that we want to experience with you or just hear about, because everybody, I feel like we just want to get across the point that everybody deserves the opportunity to heal. And if you don't know how to heal, this is a great step to start at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you're not too broken for where God can't fix you.
Yes,
And you're
exactly.
also not alone. Like God has stewardess everywhere. So like
Yes.
Yeah.
we're all, if you're a believer, you're a follower of God, that means you're also a servant for God. So like we're all here to help one another out and just to be encouragers and just to continue to like lift one another up, and like we'll go through the healing process with you again, because
We
again
are
like
fine.
and not only that,
enjoyed it.
there's more for us to like always uncover. So like
Or just be reminded of.
yeah, just be reminded
Yeah.
of. So for sure, we're willing to take on this challenge, and for anybody out there that wants to like go through the process of it and just kind of have understanding, or even again want to get like a hold of the book so that way they can see if it's something that they're interested in. By all means, leave a comment and let us know.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Anything else you guys want to add?
So, I guess there's not much more to share at this moment, but stay tuned as we
Yes.
move forward for podcast 3. Number 3.
Yeah, so if you guys don't
Number
follow
three,
us on
follow.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all our information is posted on literally all the platforms. So go check us out. Everything's in the description below.
Oh yeah, and don't forget to like,
Share
share.
and subscribe, like Tasha said.
Like, share, subscribe.
And leave a big thumbs up. Yeah, that's
And
what
if you
it
have any questions, send us a message and we'll
There
get
it
to
is.
you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in.
Bye guys.
Bye.
Till next time.